Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Chronic constipation, it often gets, kind of dismissed as just a digestive annoyance, but if you've actually dealt with it, it's a lot more than that.
Absolutely. For the millions of adults around the world who suffer from it chronically, this condition really impacts daily life. It can cause anxiety, social awkwardness, and it drives up healthcare costs quite a bit.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, maybe you or someone you know has tried to figure out what helps, right? You wade through all this confusing advice.
Oh, totally. Eat more fiber. No, wait, only soluble fiber. Drink tons of water. Try this expensive probiotic blend with 10 different strains. It's a lot of noise.
It really is. And the problem is, a lot of that common advice, well, it doesn't always have solid science behind it. Patients are looking for relief, but they often hit a wall of contradictory information.
Exactly. Most of these common dietary changes, these supplements, they're often pushed as sure things, but the high-quality evidence just hasn't been there. Until recently, there wasn't really a single, unified, evidence-based guide for doctors or dietitians.
And that's precisely why we're doing this deep dive today. We've got our hands on the first comprehensive, evidence-based dietary guidelines specifically for managing chronic constipation in adults.
These were put together by the British Dietetic Association, and the process was incredibly rigorous, based on systematic reviews, expert consensus, the whole 9 yards.
So our mission today is to cut through that noise. We want to give you clear, actionable information based on what the best evidence actually shows.
We're going to look at what really works, backed by, the gold standard, randomized controlled trials, what doesn't work, and maybe most importantly, why being specific about things like fiber or supplements makes such a huge difference in gut health.
Right. This is your shortcut to understanding the real evidence. Okay, so before we jump into the specific advice, let's talk about why these guidelines carry so much weight. It starts with the methodology, right? This wasn't just a few experts sharing opinions.
Not at all. It was a pretty serious undertaking. A steering committee of 7 top experts, specialists in nutrition, dietetics, gut physiology, gastroenterology.
A real cross-section of expertise.
Exactly. And their goal wasn't just to gather opinions. They systematically built the recommendations using only the highest level of research. They did 4 separate, pre-planned, systematic reviews and meta-analyses of all the available scientific literature.
Which is key, right? Not just cherry-picking studies.
Precisely. They defined the questions up front, the specific interventions to look at, who the target population was, and crucially, what success actually looked like, what outcomes mattered.
Okay, let's talk about that target population. Chronic constipation can mean different things to different people. Did they use a strict definition?
They actually went pretty broad, which I think makes these guidelines much more useful in the real world. They looked at adults with chronic idiopathic constipation, meaning constipation without some other obvious underlying disease causing it.
So not constipation caused by medication or another condition.
Right. And they included people diagnosed using formal criteria like the Rome criteria, but also people diagnosed just by their doctor, or even people who self-reported chronic constipation based on symptoms.
Like having fewer than 3 bowel movements a week, or dealing with hard stools, straining, that kind of thing.
Exactly those things. The idea was to capture the range of people actually seeking help for this problem, not just those who fit a narrow research definition.
That makes a lot of sense. It means the recommendation should apply to more people listening.
Hopefully, yes. And to measure success, they didn't just count bowel movements. They looked at 5 critical outcomes.
Okay, what were they?
First, the big one, overall treatment response. Basically, what percentage of people actually felt better, got clinical benefit. Second, stool output frequency, yes, but also consistency, often using the Bristol Stool Form Scale.
Ah, yes, the Bristol scale. Good tool.
Very useful. Third was overall gut symptoms, things like bloating, pain, gas. Fourth, adverse events, any side effects from the interventions. And fifth, really importantly, quality of life. How did the treatment affect people's daily lives, their worries, their physical comfort?
That quality of life piece feels crucial. It acknowledges the real burden of this condition.
Definitely. Now, to pull all this data together from lots of different studies, they used something called the GRADE approach.
GRADE. Okay, break that down for us. How does GRADE help turn complex study data into advice we can trust?
Right. GRADE, it stands for Grading of Recommendations, Assessment, Development, and Evaluation. It's a system used worldwide, and it does something really important. It separates 2 key ideas.
Which are?
First, the level of evidence. This is about the quality or certainty of the research itself. Is it based on large, well-designed trials or smaller, less reliable ones? This gets rated high, moderate, low, or very low.
Okay, quality of the studies. What's the second idea?
The second is the strength of recommendation. This is the actual advice, should you do this or not. It's rated as strong or qualified, sometimes called weak or conditional. And this strength depends not just on the evidence quality, but also on the balance of benefits versus risks, cost, and patient preferences.
Okay, wait. That distinction is interesting. You could have a low level of evidence, but still get a strong recommendation. That seems counterintuitive.
It does, but it happens a lot, especially in nutrition research. Think about it. Maybe the studies are small or have some flaws, so the evidence quality gets marked down to low.
Right.
But if that intervention showed a huge benefit in those studies, and it's cheap, easy to do, and very safe, well, the guideline committee can still confidently say, we strongly recommend this. They're weighing the massive potential upside against minimal downsides.
Oh, okay. So the strength of the recommendation reflects the overall confidence that it's the right thing to do, even if the underlying studies weren't perfect.
Exactly. It balances the evidence certainty with the practical clinical reality.
Can you give an example from these constipation guidelines where we see that?
Psyllium fiber is the perfect case study. The overall evidence for fiber supplements got a low quality rating because the studies were inconsistent, risk of bias, things like that.
Okay.
But the benefits seen with psyllium specifically were so consistently large, and psyllium is so inexpensive and readily available, that it still earned a strong recommendation for several outcomes. That's grade in action.
Got it. That nuance is really important. Now, one other thing about the methodology you mentioned, they didn't just focus on what worked. They also made a point of including things that didn't work, or even made things worse. Why was that important?
Oh, hugely important. Because misinformation is rampant. People try all sorts of things based on marketing or anecdotes. Out of 59 statements in the guidelines, 37 actually said something had no significant effect, and 2 pointed out a specific worsening effect.
So publishing the null and negative findings is just as valuable.
Absolutely. It gives clinicians and patients the evidence to say, look, we know this popular supplement sounds good, but the research shows it probably won't help with this specific problem, and it might even cause side effects. It stops people from wasting time, money, and hope on things that are proven ineffective.
Right. It's about guiding people away from dead ends, too. Okay, that sets the stage really well. Let's dive into the actual findings, starting with fiber. Fiber, it's the first thing everyone thinks of for constipation, right? And you mentioned overall, fiber supplements got a strong recommendation, even with that low-quality evidence caveat.
That's right. When they pooled the data, the signal was clear enough. Fiber supplements as a group do help increase the number of people getting clinical benefit, and they improve stool frequency and consistency.
But the big takeaway here, you said, is that fiber isn't just one thing. You have to get specific.
You absolutely have to. If there's one message about fiber to remember from this, it's that the type of fiber matters immensely. The guidelines clearly show there's a champion fiber, and then there are others that just don't perform or even cause problems.
Okay, lay it on us. Who's the champion?
The clear winner in the supplemental fiber category is psyllium.
Psyllium husk, right. Widely available. What made it stand out so much in the data?
Its effectiveness was pretty comprehensive across the board. Let's look at the numbers. For overall clinical benefit, taking psyllium significantly increased the odds. The relative risks, or RR, was 1.82.
Okay, RR 1.82. Translate that for us.
It means you're about 82% more likely to experience a clinical benefit, basically. Feel significantly better if you take psyllium compared to taking a placebo. Or, put another way, it almost doubles your chances of responding well to treatment. That's a big deal clinically.
Doubling your chances. Yeah, that's compelling. What about the mechanics, frequency, consistency?
Strong results there, too. For stool frequency, it showed a large effect size. The standardized mean difference, or SMD, was 1.13. That indicates a really meaningful increase in how often people were able to go.
And consistency, making things easier to pass.
Yep. It had a moderate effect size, SMD, 0.52, for softening stool consistency, and for straining, which is a major complaint.
Huge source of stress for people.
Exactly. Psyllium significantly reduced the severity of straining. That had a moderate negative effect size, SMD negative 0.65, meaning straining got noticeably less intense.
So you've got psyllium. It's cheap, easy to find, increases frequency, softens stool, makes straining less severe. It sounds like a really solid evidence-based starting point.
It absolutely is. Based on this review, it's the gold standard for supplemental fiber for constipation. But, and this is crucial, the guidelines also tell us which other common fibers are, well, buds.
Okay, let's hear about the non-starters. These are things people might be buying right now thinking they'll help.
Very possibly. The guidelines make a strong recommendation not to use certain fibers if your main goal is achieving that overall clinical benefit, increasing frequency, or softening stool. Specifically, they looked at polydextrose, galacto-oligosaccharides, often called GOS, and common inulin mixtures.
And the verdict.
The meta-analysis found these specific supplements did not significantly impact those core outcomes. No real change in the number of people benefiting, no significant boost in frequency, no noticeable softening.
Wow. So if you see those listed as the main fiber source on a product aimed at constipation.
The evidence suggests you should probably look elsewhere, like for Psyllium. This finding really challenges those general fiber blend products. If they're using ineffective fibers, you might take it, not get results, and wrongly conclude that fiber just doesn't work for you.
When really it was the type of fiber.
Precisely. And the story with inulin gets even more specific and, frankly, a bit negative.
Oh, inulin is in so many products, especially prebiotics and gut health foods.
It is. And the review found that while inulin-type fructans might offer a slight softening of stool consistency, there was a major downside.
Which was?
They significantly increased the severity of flatulence, gas.
Wait, seriously? A common fiber additive makes gas worse?
Yes, and not just a little bit. The effect size for increased flatulence severity was large SMD 0.79. This is really important practical information.
So if someone starts a fiber supplement, maybe one with inulin, and suddenly feels really bloated and gassy?
It could very well be the inulin itself causing that discomfort. The guideline basically says if that happens, check the label. If inulin-type fructans are high on the list, switching to something like Psyllium, or even a food-based approach like kiwifruit, which we'll get to, might be a much better, more comfortable option. It's a trade-off, slightly softer stool versus significant gas that many people probably wouldn't choose.
That is incredibly useful, specific advice. Okay, so fiber. Psyllium good, some others not so much. Watch out for inulin causing gas. What's next? Okay, we've covered fiber supplements, the good and the less good. Now let's shift gears from bulking agents to something that works differently, an osmotic agent. And the data here for one particular mineral sounds like it was pretty staggering.
It really was. The findings for magnesium oxide, just simple MO, are probably among the strongest and most consistent in the entire guideline report.
Magnesium oxide. Okay, how strong are we talking?
We're talking strong recommendations across almost every single outcome they measured. Let's start with clinical benefit. Taking magnesium oxide supplements dramatically increased the likelihood of someone responding positively to treatment. The relative risk was 3.32.
3.32. So more than tripling your chances of benefit compared to placebo.
Exactly. A 232% increase in the likelihood of response. That is a massive, massive effect size. It immediately flags it as a potentially very powerful intervention.
Wow. Okay, so huge overall benefit. How did that translate into, day-to-day relief? What about frequency and consistency?
Profound effects there, too. The data showed MO led to a large and clinically meaningful increase in stool frequency. On average, people taking it had 3.7 more complete spontaneous bowel movements per week compared to placebo.
3.7 more per week. If someone's only going once or twice a week, that's potentially life-changing.
It absolutely is. And it significantly improves stool consistency as well. We're talking an average improvement of 1.14 points on the Bristol Stool Form Scale.
Okay, put that 1.14 points in context. That's moving someone from, say, type 1 or 2, hard, lumpy, difficult to pass up to type 3 or 4, which is the ideal sausage-shaped, soft, easy-to-pass range, right?
Precisely. That magnitude of change represents achieving the target consistency for clinical success. And what's really striking is what happened with other gut symptoms.
Did it help with bloating, pain, that sort of thing? Because sometimes things that speed up the gut can cause more cramping.
That's what makes MO stand out. It actually improved global gut symptoms overall. Specifically, it significantly reduced the severity of straining and also that awful feeling of incomplete evacuation.
Okay, that's good. But did it cause other side effects like the gas we saw with inulin?
Here's the amazing part. The analysis found that magnesium oxide supplements actually reduced the severity of common side effects.
Reduced them, not just didn't cause them, but made them better.
Yes. Specifically, it led to a statistically significant reduction in the severity of bloating, with a mean difference of negative 0.81 compared to placebo, and abdominal discomfort, with a mean difference of negative 0.59.
That's remarkable. So it's tackling the constipation and alleviating the associated discomfort. That sets it apart.
It really does. It's not just solving the main problem. It seems to be calming the related symptoms, too. This likely contributes massively to its high tolerability and effectiveness.
And what about the bigger picture? Quality of life.
Huge improvements there as well. MO significantly boosted global quality of life. The average improvement on the specific constipation quality of life questionnaire, the PAC-QOL, was 16.25 points. That's a very substantial change.
16 points is a lot on those scales.
It is. And the improvement was seen across all the different aspects they measure. Physical discomfort, psychosocial well-being, worries and concerns about constipation, and overall patient satisfaction. It was a clean sweep.
Okay, magnesium oxide is sounding like a bit of a wonder supplement based on this evidence. Given how effective it is, what's the practical advice?
Dosage? Any warnings? The guidelines give a good practice recommendation for dosage. They suggest starting with 0.5 grams per day and gradually increasing up to 1.5 grams per day, taken for at least 4 weeks to see the full effect.
Start low, go slow, standard advice.
Exactly. The main caveat is that patients need to monitor for potential side effects, primarily abdominal pain or diarrhea, which can happen if the dose is too high for them. In the trials, some people did need to reduce their dose because of this.
So finding the right personal dose is key.
Yes. And the other consideration is that because it's magnesium, it might not be suitable for everyone. People on very specific low magnesium diets for medical reasons, or potentially those needing strict sodium control, would need to discuss it with their doctor first. But for the general adult population with chronic constipation, the evidence is incredibly strong.
Wow. Okay. Magnesium oxide. Definitely one to remember. Let's move on to another huge category. Probiotics. Probiotics. This has to be one of the most heavily marketed areas in all of health and wellness, especially gut health. You see them everywhere, often positioned as a cure-all. What did this rigorous review find about probiotics for chronic constipation?
Probiotics. This section of the guidelines is a masterclass in the difference between marketing hype and actual clinical evidence. It's complicated.
Complicated how? Did they work or not?
Well, if you just lump all the probiotic studies together, looking at the category as a whole, you see a small positive effect. Overall, taking a probiotic resulted in about a 28% increased likelihood of achieving clinical benefit compared to placebo.
Okay, 28% isn't nothing, but it's not the miracle cure sometimes promised.
Exactly. And they also saw a moderate increase in stool frequency overall, SMD 0.71, and interestingly, a small reduction in the severity of flatulence, SMD 0.37.
So slightly better chance of improvement, going a bit more often, maybe slightly less gas. That sounds okay.
It sounds okay on the surface. But here's the crucial part. When the researchers drilled down and analyzed the results by specific probiotic species or even individual strains, that overall beneficial effect mostly vanished, especially for the main outcome of clinical benefit.
It vanished. So the general benefit was just an average of lots of different, mostly ineffective things.
Pretty much. The guideline document is very clear on this. Quote, no single probiotic species or strain was found to be effective in increasing response to treatment. The effects are incredibly strain-specific and often very limited. You absolutely cannot rely on the general category of probiotics.
So grabbing any bottle off the shelf that says probiotic is basically a lottery ticket.
That's a very good analogy. You might get lucky and happen to pick a strain that offers a slight benefit for one specific symptom, but you're just as likely to get one that does absolutely nothing for your constipation. The most important message here is, stop thinking probiotics. Start thinking specific named strains with at least some evidence, however limited.
Okay, so let's talk about those specifics. Were there any strains that showed some effect on something, even if limited?
Yes, a few popped up with specific narrow effects. The one with the strongest evidence for a single outcome was Bifidobacterium lactis.
B. lactis. Heard of that one. What did it do?
It showed a moderate effect on increasing stool frequency. The evidence for this was rated as strong, so it helps you go more often.
Okay, that's useful, but
that's it. B. lactis had no significant impact on stool consistency, overall gut symptoms, straining, bloating, abdominal pain, or quality of life. Zero effect on those.
So more frequent, but potentially still uncomfortable movements, a very partial solution.
At best. Then they looked at multi-strain probiotics, the ones that blend several different types together, which are very popular.
Do those offer broader benefits, combining different strains?
You'd think so, but no. The analysis found that multi-strain products did not improve the overall likelihood of clinical benefit, didn't increase stool frequency, and didn't improve global symptoms.
So no effect on the main problems.
Yeah.
Anything.
They did show a slight ability to soften stool consistency. And interestingly, the only other area they seemed to help was on specific quality of life subscores related to patients' satisfaction and their worries and concerns.
Maybe feeling like you're doing something helps psychologically. Or the slightly softer stool reduces worry.
It's hard to say exactly why. Maybe it provides a little general comfort, but it's clearly not tackling the core definition of chronic constipation based on this evidence.
Any other specific strains worth mentioning?
There's one called Bacillus coagulans unique IS2. It didn't affect frequency or consistency, but it did show some improvement specifically in reducing the frequency of abdominal pain episodes.
Okay, so targeted pain relief, but not fixing the constipation itself.
Seems that way. And another common one they looked at, Lactobacillus casei shirota, found in Yakult, showed no impact on frequency or consistency either. It just reinforces how random and specific the effects are.
So the probiotic picture is really murky. No silver bullet, very strain-specific, often marginal benefits on single outcomes. What's the practical advice, then, if a patient wants to try one?
Given the lack of strong evidence for any single widely available strain providing comprehensive relief, the guideline committee landed on a very pragmatic expert opinion recommendation.
Which is?
Basically, clinicians can support a patient if they want to try a particular brand of probiotic that they choose. But the key advice is to give it a defined trial period at least 4 weeks.
4 weeks. And if they don't feel a noticeable difference by then?
Then they should probably stop taking it. Don't keep spending money hoping it will eventually kick in. If there's no clear personal benefit after a month of consistent use, abandon that product and focus time and resources on things with stronger evidence, like the Psyllium or Magnesium Oxide we discussed.
That makes sense. A structured trial, not endless hope.
Okay, let's move from supplements back to actual foods and drinks. Okay, we've hit fiber supplements, magnesium, and the probiotic puzzle. Now let's talk about actual foods and drinks. Can eating certain things make a real difference? Let's start with fiber again, but this time from whole foods. How does something like kiwifruit stack up against, say, psyllium?
This is one of the really exciting parts of the guidelines, offering a strong food-based option. The recommendation is clear. Eating 2 to 3 kiwifruit per day for at least 4 weeks is strongly recommended.
2 to 3 kiwis a day. Okay. How to compare directly to psyllium in the studies?
They did head-to-head comparisons, and interestingly, kiwifruit was found to be slightly more effective than psyllium at increasing stool frequency. It led to about 0.36 more complete spontaneous bowel movements per week.
Wow. A whole food beating the gold standard supplement on frequency, even if just slightly. What about consistency and straining? On those metrics, softening stool consistency and reducing the severity of straining kiwifruit and psyllium were found to be comparable. No significant difference between them.
So similar benefits overall, maybe slightly better frequency with kiwi. What's the big advantage of choosing the fruit then?
The main advantage seems to be tolerability. The guidelines specifically point out that kiwifruit might be a better choice for people who get those common side effects from psyllium, the bloating, the abdominal pain, the gas we talked about.
So the kiwi delivers the fiber and other beneficial compounds perhaps more gently.
It appears so. The food matrix, the structure of the fruit itself, seems to package everything in a way that reduces the risk of those uncomfortable side effects. This could make it a much more sustainable long-term solution for many people compared to a supplement powder.
That's great practical advice. What about another classic constipation remedy, prunes? How did they do?
Prunes were also looked at, but the evidence included in this review only compared them directly to psyllium.
And the result?
The finding was that there was no significant difference between eating prunes and taking psyllium when it came to stool consistency or the severity of straining.
So prunes work too, performing similarly to psyllium on those measures.
Exactly. It confirms prunes as another effective evidence-based food intervention. Choosing between kiwifruit, prunes, or psyllium might just come down to personal preference, taste, and how well an individual tolerates each one.
Good to have options. Okay, now let's talk about bread, specifically high-fiber rye bread, often touted as healthier, but the results here were mixed.
Definitely mixed. It's what the guideline authors call the rye bread paradox. On the one hand, compared to standard white bread, eating high-fiber rye bread did slightly increase stool frequency by about 0.43 extra movements per week. A small but measurable positive effect.
Okay, small benefit, but there was a downside.
Yes, a significant one. The studies found that eating the rye bread actually worsened overall global symptoms of constipation compared to the white bread group. The average symptom score increased slightly.
Wait, higher fiber bread made overall symptoms worse. How?
The researchers attributed this worsening, primarily, to increased gastrointestinal side effects. More bloating, gas, discomfort, especially when people first started eating the rye bread. It seems that something about the rye bread, maybe components other than just the fiber or the type of fiber itself, caused more irritation for these individuals.
And was the dose practical?
That's the other issue. To get that small benefit in frequency, the participants in the studies had to eat 6 to 8 slices of rye bread per day.
6 to 8 slices. That's a lot of rye bread for most people to eat consistently.
It's likely impractical for many long term, so you have a small frequency benefit, but it comes with worse overall symptoms and requires a very high, potentially unsustainable dose. It really challenges the simple idea that any high-fiber food is automatically better for constipation.
Context and specifics matter again. Okay, let's shift from food to drink. There was a surprising finding about water, wasn't there?
Yes, this was fascinating. High mineral content water. Often overlooked, but the evidence was strong enough for a recommendation.
Mineral water, like the kind you buy in bottles.
Exactly. Specifically, water that is naturally high in certain minerals, particularly calcium, magnesium, and sulfate. The review found that drinking this type of water increased the likelihood of having a beneficial clinical response by 47% compared to drinking low mineral water like typical tap water.
Wow, nearly a 50% better chance of improvement just by changing your water? That seems incredibly simple.
It does. The recommended approach was drinking between half a liter and 1.5 liters of this high mineral water per day for about 2 to 6 weeks.
What kind of mineral levels are we talking about? What makes water high mineral in this context?
The waters used in the successful studies had pretty substantial levels. For example, magnesium content ranged anywhere from about 105 up to 1,000 milligrams per liter. Sulfate levels were often very high, like 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams per liter.
Okay, so significantly more minerals than tap water. Are there any downsides or warnings?
Yes, a couple of important caveats. While it boosted the overall chance of clinical benefit, the high mineral water didn't actually show a significant impact on stool frequency itself, or on global symptoms, or quality of life in these studies. So it seems to help some people feel generally better, but doesn't directly fix the mechanics for everyone.
In more of a supportive measure, then.
Seems like it. And the other crucial point is sodium. Clinicians need to advise patients that some of these commercially available high mineral waters can be very high in sodium. Drinking 1.5 liters a day could easily push someone over their recommended daily salt intake limits, which is a concern, especially for people with high blood pressure or kidney problems.
Right. Got to read the label carefully for sodium content, too. Okay. Finally, were there any common remedies or supplements that the review found just didn't have enough evidence either way?
Yes. Several popular things fell into the insufficient evidence category, vitamin C, for example. Lots of anecdotal claims, but no rigorous controlled trials looking specifically at its effect on chronic constipation outcomes were found for this review. Same for caffeine, surprisingly, perhaps, not enough direct evidence.
What about senna? That's a very common over-the-counter laxative.
Senna was interesting. There were 2 individual randomized controlled trials that did show it was effective. However, when the guideline authors combined the data from those 2 trials in a meta-analysis, the overall effect on clinical benefit or stool frequency wasn't statistically significant anymore.
So the combined evidence was weaker.
Exactly. It suggests that the effect might not be as robust or consistent as previously thought, or that we just need more higher quality placebo-controlled trials specifically on senna for chronic constipation. Be really sure. It highlights the need for better research on some very common treatments.
And what about those foods people always blame, like rice or bananas? Any evidence?
Nope. The guidelines state clearly that there's currently insufficient research to support the idea that specific foods like rice or bananas reliably cause constipation, or that avoiding them is an effective treatment. More research needed there too.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground here. From the details of study design to specific fibers, minerals, foods, drinks. Let's try to synthesize this for the listener. If someone is dealing with chronic constipation and wants to apply this evidence today, what are the absolute top-line actionable takeaways based on those strong recommendations?
Right, let's boil it down. If you're looking for the intervention with the most comprehensive, robust evidence across the board, improving frequency, consistency, overall symptoms, and quality of life, then magnesium oxide stands out as the current clinical winner based on this review.
Okay, MO number 1 for broad efficacy. What about fiber?
For supplemental fiber, psyllium remains the clear, evidence-backed choice. It works well for frequency, consistency, and straining.
And the food alternative.
If you prefer a whole food approach, or if psyllium gives you side effects, eating 2 to 3 kiwifruit daily is strongly recommended. It's comparable to psyllium, even slightly better for frequency, and likely better tolerated.
So magnesium oxide, psyllium, or kiwifruit, those are the big 3 positive actions.
Those are the interventions with the strongest backing for significant benefit. And just as important is knowing what not to waste time or money on.
Right, the discard list.
Absolutely. Stop thinking in terms of general probiotics. If you try one, pick a specific strain, give it only 4 weeks, and be realistic about its likely limited, narrow benefits. And be wary of fiber supplements that rely heavily on polydextrose, GOS, or especially inulin mixtures, given the lack of broad efficacy and the potential for inulin to increase gas.
Okay, focus on the winners, be skeptical of the rest. Now, these guidelines are great, but no research is perfect. Did the authors point out any major limitations or gaps where we still need more information?
They did. One of the biggest gaps, surprisingly, is a lack of evidence for whole dietary patterns. We can talk about kiwifruit or rye bread, but there aren't enough large, high-quality, systematic reviews comparing entire diets like the Mediterranean diet versus a standard Western diet, for example, specifically for chronic constipation outcomes.
So we don't have strong evidence yet to recommend a whole specific diet for constipation.
Not based on this level of rigorous systematic review. It's a major area needing future research comparing dietary patterns head-to-head using robust trial designs.
And are there still issues with just defining and studying constipation itself?
Yes, that remains a challenge. The guidelines mention the ongoing inconsistency between how patients describe their symptoms and the formal diagnostic criteria like Rome IV. This difference in how study populations are selected makes it harder to compare results across different trials accurately. We need more consistency there.
And that links back to needing more trials on those common but unproven things?
Exactly. We still need good, large, placebo-controlled, randomized trials for things like senna, vitamin C, caffeine, and to really investigate those alleged trigger foods properly. There are still big questions around everyday remedies that need solid answers.
It really underscores that the path forward isn't just general advice, it's this kind of highly specific, rigorous testing.
It truly is. This whole process is a powerful lesson in specificity. It shows that natural doesn't automatically mean effective, and the benefits often lie in very specific compounds, like magnesium oxide, or specific fiber types like psyllium, rather than broad categories. It empowers people to ask better questions and demand real evidence. #TagOutro.
So to wrap up this deep dive, the most powerful messages seem to be, for fiber, focus on psyllium, or get your kiwifruit in daily. Magnesium oxide emerges as an incredibly effective all-rounder, tackling frequency, symptoms, and quality of life.
And with probiotics, remember it's a puzzle. Specific strains might help with specific, limited issues, but don't bank on the general category providing a guaranteed fix. Give any specific strain a strict 4-week trial, max.
We hope this discussion encourages you to critically look at the health claims you encounter every day. This research really proves that solutions aren't one-size-fits-all, and real benefits often come down to specific compounds or types, not just broad labels.
And maybe, just maybe, take a moment today to check the label on your bottled water or look up the mineral report for your tap water if it's available. That simple, overlooked factor, high mineral content, carries a strong recommendation for improving clinical response. It might be one of the easiest evidence-backed adjustments you can make.
Thank you so much for joining us for this evidence-based exploration of the dietary guidelines for chronic constipation. We hope this knowledge helps you, or someone you know, navigate towards solutions that genuinely make a difference.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.